how do these concepts apply to engineering professionals aiming to make a meaningful difference in their field?
I think a strong transition between starting out in the merchant marine and our pillars and reverse engineer method would be how important communication is. From a young age, high school age, being in a military JROTC environment.
Welcome to this week's Women in Engineering episode. Today, we're honored to have a truly inspiring guest, Stacie Alexiou, CEO of Watt & Flux, a certified energy manager, CEM, and Six Sigma Master Black Belt. Stacie's career journey is a testament to resilience, innovation, and leadership. From her early days as a merchant marine engineering officer to leading impactful disaster recovery missions like the World Trade Center rebuild, Stacie has consistently set the standard for excellence in engineering and leadership. In this episode, we'll explore how her experience at sea shaped her approach to engineering and her strategies for building confidence as a woman in a male-dominated field. As well, we'll look at her systems she's designed to drive precision and optimize outcomes. We'll also dive into her reverse engineer method and its 6 pillars of profitability, uncovering how engineers can balance innovation with safety, earn respect in challenging environments, and create lasting impact in their careers. I'm your host, Rebecca Swaby.
And I'm your host, Tiffany Teachy, and this is the Women in Engineering podcast. And with that, let's jump right into today's episode. Now it's time to jump right into the main segment of our episode. Today we have with us Stacie Alexiou, CEM. Stacie, welcome to the Women in Engineering podcast.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yes. Now, Stacie, your career journey is nothing short of remarkable, starting with merchant marine engineering officer, and now you're leading Watt plus Flux. Can you share how your early experiences at sea shaped your approach to engineering and leadership?
Sure, yeah. Being in the merchant marine and starting out in a field where you are using your hands, you are on watches, you're learning, you're training to be an officer, brings you into an environment where you're constantly aware that every one of your actions affects somebody else. Somebody that's on your team, somebody that you're responsible to, somebody maybe that's waiting for you to relieve them from watch. Every number that you take down is a sign of how responsible you've been in passing over your responsibilities to the person who's relying on you. Coming into the professional world, having had that layer of accountability really baked in, allowed me to be so aware of how I was affecting all of the other people that were in my ecosystem, not just people that I was responsible to as a direct report, but maybe someone that was lateral to me as well.
That's great. Yeah, and we've read a little bit about your work, and we know your reverse engineering method emphasizes 6 pillars of profitability, including impact, leadership, and legacy. So can you talk about how do these concepts apply to engineering professionals aiming to make a meaningful difference in their field?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rebecca. I think a strong transition between starting out in the merchant marine and our pillars and reverse engineer method would be how important communication is. From a young age, high school age, being in a military JROTC environment all the way through college and then in the merchant marine, communication was constantly something that you refine. From how you speak on a radio to make sure that you're mitigating risk and somebody understands you, through leadership on a team, making sure that you follow something up, you're very clear, and that you're ushering the best possible outcome that you can, while being aware that the communication aspect of it is my responsibility before I can expect anybody to carry something out. If I tie that into what we do on a strategic consulting basis and with reverse engineer method, I look at profitability very holistically. Yes, our owners and leaders are running businesses, and so they need to be profitable from a financial standpoint. But in order for them to be truly fulfilled, they need to be profitable in a holistic sense. So whether that means their relationships at home, their professional relationships, their health, their ability to grow as a leader, all of these things contribute to them being more profitable.
And that is important. I mean, that's the biggest piece, is making sure that they're profitable. So I love how you shared that piece of it. Now, I know we're known for acronyms in this industry. So as a CEM, and make sure you break that down for us, and a Six Sigma Master Black Belt, you're known for your focus on structure and precision. Now, how do you design systems that lead to optimized outcomes in engineering and leadership?
So this leads to one of my favorite questions and one of my favorite things to explore with our clients. And that is very early on, defining with them what success is to them, so that I'm not applying my own agenda or my own background or my thoughts about what would success be for them. Instead, I'm going straight to the source, the person who I'm performing for, and learning what would success look like for them. After we understand that, then we can start to reverse engineer a client journey. So we're starting at the end. What does that successful outcome look like to them? And then we're building our way backwards. So we are creating a critical timeline of events and milestones that are measurable. So as we perform for them, we're not just throwing spaghetti against the wall. We're able to see on a regular basis how we are tracking to what they define as success.
So you've done some pretty important work in your career, including leading disaster recovery missions and the World Trade Center rebuild. What are some of the key lessons that engineers can learn from working on a mission critical and high pressure project?
So I would come back to communication and how important it is for us to be aware of the accountability that is ours as we communicate. In particular, there's a common bridge between the disaster recovery and the build that I'm honored to have been able to participate in. And that is being aware that there is no single piece that holds everything up. It is such a massive team effort, and a very somber statistic that goes along with the build of the World Trade Center is almost as many souls as were lost were involved in rebuilding at one time in the towers. And so I was acutely aware that no single trade was completely aware of what another trade had to do to hold up their end of their scope. But what tied us all together was the extreme coordination. And so being aware that if I'm late delivering one trade, then the next person and the person behind them are also going to be impacted. But if I can think about and preempt where somebody needs to be so that we can pass the baton seamlessly to each other, even though it may not be in my job description, that extra layer of communication, giving somebody a heads up where you're at, preempting, forecasting, those traits, they carry through in everything that we do. So I think one of the things I really enjoyed was the ability to look outside of the lines of my job description and my role, whether it was under my umbrella in my organization or whether I was working for another organization, and seeing what would be the bridging factors that I could work with other members of construction in preempting so that our coordination could deliver the best outcomes.
And that's important. I mean, you're talking about the best outcomes because of the impact that was made that you shared with that whole rebuild part is important. And when we talk about that, safety and advocacy are essential in the engineering process. So how can women in engineering balance innovation with maintaining rigorous safety standards?
Yeah, so safety becomes so contingent upon what you've experienced. And so something that may seem overkill to one person is absolutely not even enough to someone else. Coming from a merchant marine background and having a lot of construction experience, I was on a front line of seeing things that you can't reverse. So bringing that into my umbrella, I instituted things where I would not break my own rule. And I saw that anytime you see a business owner or a leader setting a rule, but then to make an extra dollar, deciding that that rule was okay to break that day, it completely unravels the fabric of your team. So consistency, making sure that whatever safety talks you're having, whatever emphasis on safety, that you really normalize it. On some construction sites, people feel as though they might be called out for wearing eye protection or ear protection because it's not normalized. And yet on other sites, it's not tolerated to show up without that gear. So from the top down, it really needs to be normalized. What is the emphasis on safety so that everyone feels comfortable and understands that, again, it's our personal responsibility to show up safely for each other.
Yeah, that's so important. And I can relate to, being on a construction site, especially as a young engineer, and it can be intimidating sometimes. So, standing your ground in general, it can be tough. I'd love to hear any advice that you have for young engineers or women about earning respect and holding their own in challenging environments.
This is another favorite topic because you can sit in a classroom all day long and people can tell you whatever they'd like to say. But until you actually cut your teeth and you feel the fire of the pressure of being in these situations, you can't be shaped by someone telling you something. But you can at least get it on your radar and prepare and maybe know what things could potentially occur. The most valuable thing that you can do as a woman on a construction site or anywhere where you feel that you're the minority is to lead with value. Do your homework before it's due. Do your research before someone's going to ask you. Ask the questions that you know the answers to. Because once you come on site, even if somebody thinks that you hold a different position, and trust me, I've been mistaken for the flagger, the cook, you name it. I've walked on a ship where I was an engine room officer and had somebody ask me where the engine room was and then say, "Oh, ma'am, I don't want to take you out of your way." To their extreme surprise the next day, finding that they would be taking some leadership from the person they thought didn't have a place in their environment. So keeping a sense of humor and not taking yourself too seriously and knowing that people want to work with people that they enjoy being around as well. And there's a balance. As a female, you don't have to fill these hardened shoes or change your language or act in a manner that is tougher than you think you are. Your sharpest edges will come from the research that you do and the knowledge that will distinguish you. So no matter what shape, size, background you are from, if you add value and you catch things that other people aren't catching, they're going to want you on their team.
That's an amazing quote. I'm going to have to steal that from my pocketbook.
Love it. Love it. I mean, this builds upon it. When we talk about dealing with intimidation, confidence in the engineering field can be challenging to build, especially for women. So what strategies do you recommend for developing confidence, particularly in these male-dominated environments?
The first one is rip that Band-Aid off. Do not be scared of going out into the field or out into whatever the operations environment is where you work. Do it early in the stage where it's acceptable for you to ask as many questions as possible. As you progress up a ladder, you might become more conscious of the fact that it may make you feel sophomoric to ask a question within a community. So your best time is way early on and often. Ask the questions, but also put yourself in the environments that do challenge you. Because the more reps you have showing up in those, the more as you do climb up the ladder and you get new job experiences, people will value your experience over any titles. So rip the Band-Aid off definitely is the first one. And the second is to be aware that great ideas are never enough. Execution is the tank that rides over great ideas. And so if you're willing to show up and you're willing to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, before you know it, you're going to be the most comfortable person on site because the unfamiliar will be behind you.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. And also very relatable. The concept of the longer you wait to ask the questions, the harder it is, right? So get out in front of it, put yourself out there and do those uncomfortable things early in your career. That's awesome. So do you have any final advice that you can provide to other engineers, especially women who aspire to reach leadership positions or start their own ventures?
Yeah. So one thing that I would love to just drop on someone's shoulder in hopes that they put it in their pocket and hear it when they need it is when you find yourself talking yourself out of something, whether it's an event or an opportunity to show up and you don't think you matter in the room, even more so show up. Because most of the experiences that I got that I wasn't in line for, and what I mean by that is maybe there was someone I had never met or I didn't even have 3 degrees proximity to, and they happened to be at that event or in that room. And I pushed myself to show up. Those things led to opportunities that I wouldn't have had a path to because it wasn't something I was proximal to. So taking yourself out of your comfort zone, making sure that you're not limiting yourself to the things going on in your organization or maybe in the associations that you know. Set small attainable goals for yourself where every quarter you're pushing the bounds of something that you're growing, whether it's a new association, maybe it's speaking on a panel and you never have before, or volunteering somewhere where you might stretch your comfort levels and capabilities.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And stretching your comfort levels and possibly finding new energy too, things that you didn't expect in places
And
you
your
wouldn't have otherwise been.
reflection off of people. The most beautiful thing when we hire people and we think we're going to map out the outcomes, the incredible people getting in a room and the diversity of experiences are what create that energy. We can't know it from before. So forcing yourself to be where you don't know what the outcome is going to be, but you know that there are people, experiences that will stretch you. And the last one I would say is try to make sure that you have something in a regular rotation where you are the least capable in the room.
Ooh, okay. That's hard to do. But good advice for sure. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful learning about your experience and your career. Yeah. Was there anything else you'd like to share? This has been a great conversation.
You might regret that you asked that because there is one thing. No matter what position you're in, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an intern, or if you are under a larger umbrella climbing in your career, there's always somebody that is a few steps behind you. And reaching back to lift that person up, I so often have conversations about building ecosystems. And sometimes people ask me a little late, how do I build an ecosystem? Where are these people? And they are there every day. So don't assume that that you only have to look forward at what doors people can open for you when you go to an event. Challenge yourself and spend the first hour looking for people you can open doors for and build that goodwill.
Amazing.
That's good. You dropped some nuggets and gems, so thank you. That was awesome. Awesome. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you won't miss our upcoming episodes featuring interviews with inspiring women engineers, discussions about industry trends, and much more. Go to womeninengineeringpodcast.com where you will find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, may your engineering endeavors be as remarkable as the women whose stories we're sharing. Stay curious, keep innovating, and engineer a better future.